Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Pamela Anson, and I'm the Director of Brand Outreach at the Better Business Bureau serving Greater Cleveland. I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us for our financial impact of the coronavirus webinar. Today, we have two speakers today. One is Phil Debonate. He is from the Federal Trade Commission. And Sue McConnell is also joining us with the Better Business Bureau serving Greater Cleveland. She is our president and CEO. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them in the questions box. There'll be several opportunities for us during this presentation for us to answer your questions. But for now, I'm going to pass this over to Phil to get started with our webinar. Thank you so much, Phil, for being here today.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you all for attending this webinar. Can you hear me just fine, Pam? I just want to check.
Yep, we're good to go.
Great. And I want to thank all of you for attending today's webinar. And we hope that this will be useful to you and to someone you care about. As Pam said, my name is Phil Debonate. I'm an attorney at the FTC, and I work at the Cleveland office of the FTC. Today, we're going to talk about the financial impact of the coronavirus and some ideas for how to handle issues like trouble paying your bills, including mortgages and car payments, and if it comes to that, your rights in debt collection. We'll also talk about the scams that might come along with these situations and some of the red flags of these scams. And hopefully we'll also be able to share with you some resources where you can get additional information on how to get in touch with the FTC and the BBB to report a scam. We know there are not great options. There aren't a lot of great options if you're not able to pay your bills right now. But here are just a few tips and ideas that we want to share with you today. First, and you'll see this as a running theme for this presentation, ask for extra time. The companies you're paying want to get their money, even if it's eventually. So if you ask, they might work with you to set up a payment plan with more time for you to pay your bills. You can also look for a credit counselor who might be able to help. For tips on how to choose a credit counselor, you can visit ftc.gov/credit counselor. This website lists a number of questions that you should be asking the credit counselor before you agree to use their services. Now, keep in mind that most reputable credit counselors are nonprofit, and they offer services at local offices, online, or on the phone. But you should also be aware that the nonprofit status does not guarantee that services are free, affordable, or even legitimate. In fact, some credit counseling companies charge high fees, which might be hidden, and others might urge you as their client to make voluntary contributions that can lead to more debt. Of course, there's also the option of borrowing money from a credit union or a bank, or putting more money or putting more on your credit card. The important thing is before you borrow, you take a look at the costs. You need to ask certain questions. What's the APR or annual percentage rate on that loan or that credit card balance? Are there fees to get the money? When do you have to repay it? And what happens if you can't? Then with all this information, you can decide for yourself what is the best deal for you. You can visit the Using Credit section of consumer.gov for more information about using credit. If you're looking for quick cash, you may think about turning to payday loans or car title loans. I have a couple of short videos here that I want to share with you regarding some of the basics about these loans.
John's truck broke down, and he needed money quickly to get it fixed. He couldn't get a loan, and his credit card was maxed out. So John went to a payday lender. To get his $500 in cash, he had to give the lender a check for $575, $500 to repay the loan, and $75 for a fee. John didn't have the money in his account right then, but it didn't matter. The lender would hold the check for 2 weeks until the loan was due. But after 2 weeks, John didn't have enough money to pay back the loan. So he paid the lender $75 more to roll over his loan. That means he got 2 more weeks to repay the loan. And 2 weeks later, the same thing happened. John paid another $75. That bought another 2 weeks to pay back the loan. It took John 12 weeks, that's 3 months, to save enough money to repay the original $500 loan. In the end, John paid $1,025 when he only needed $500. That was a really expensive loan. Albert needed some extra money to pay his bills this month. He saw an ad on TV that said you can get a loan if you own a car. So he went to a local shop that advertised car title loans. Albert filled out an application. Then he showed the lender his car and the title to his car. The lender gave Albert $1,000, but he kept the title to Albert's car. In 30 days, Albert had to repay the $1,000 he borrowed, plus a fee of $250 to get his car title back. But a month later, Albert didn't have the money he owed, so the lender gave Albert more time to repay the loan. But Albert would have to pay another fee of $250. Another month passed. Albert now owed $1,500, but he still couldn't repay the loan. This time, the lender didn't give Albert more time to pay back the loan. Instead, the lender sold Albert's car and kept the money. Albert lost his car and his transportation. He knew it would take a long time to save enough money to buy another car, and he also knew he would never get a car title loan again. Albert.
Now, those are just some of the basics of payday loans and car title loans. As the first video shows, payday loans can be incredibly expensive. Very few people are able to repay them in full when they come due. So the loan rolls over and you pay more fees. And it's really the same scenario with car title loans. Only now your car is the guarantee to that loan. So if you can't pay the loan and the fees, you could lose your car. These loans can wind up making things worse rather than better. So if you're considering one of these quick loans, maybe from a payday lender, a cash advance place, or a car title loan company, be sure that you consider these costs. Now, in Ohio, there are specific rules and limitations that apply to payday loans. There are limits to the amount, the interest and fees they charge, and the term of the loan itself. In Ohio, car title loans are illegal, so they're not allowed at all. If you're having trouble paying rent, the very first thing that you should do is to contact your landlord immediately. You can ask for assistance or ask for extra time to pay rent. Apart from that, you should know that many states and localities have temporarily halted evictions and utility shutoffs due to the pandemic. To learn more about this kind of relief, you can check out the website for the Ohio Attorney General's office. You can contact the local consumer protection agencies or the local legal aid office. You can also check out this website called nolo.com, NOLO.com. It has a running list of emergency bans on evictions and information on utility shutoffs per state. And I've checked this website, and Ohio information is listed on it. But you have to make sure before you rely on this information, you want to double check it as well. So you'll be contacting trustworthy sources of information, and you can start with, as I said here, the state AG, Ohio AG's office, local consumer protection agencies, or legal aid office. If you're having trouble paying your mortgage, that can be very scary. But there are some protections in place for homeowners. First, let's talk about federally backed mortgages. You should start by contacting your mortgage servicer immediately. Explain your situation and ask what assistance they can give you. If you have a federally backed mortgage, the CARES Act, which is a new law, has stopped foreclosures for 60 days beginning on March 18. This law also gives borrowers the right to 180 days of forbearance. Basically, the payments will be postponed, but your loan itself is not going to be forgiven. You're just postponing your payments. The law also covers mortgages that are backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, and the USDA. As you can imagine, it might take a while to get a loan servicer on the phone during these times, but this may be an important lifeline for you or someone you know. So it's worth exploring if you're having problems or troubles paying your mortgage. Now let's talk about mortgages that are not federally backed. Again, start with contacting your mortgage servicer. Explain your situation and ask them what they can do for you. You can also look into what the state can do to help. Some states have temporarily stopped home foreclosures, so find the state government's website and look around for information and help. For us here in Ohio, the state's website is coronavirus.ohio.gov. That's coronavirus.ohio.gov. And we also have a coronavirus hotline for the state, and that is 833-427-5634. Another option is for you to consider a HUD-approved housing counselor. The Department of Housing and Urban Development keeps a list of approved housing counseling agencies on its websites. And these counselors can help explain your options and give you the information you need to make a decision that is very important. Another option is you can call the Home Ownership Preservation Foundation, or HOPE. HOPE is a nonprofit that partners with mortgage companies and local government to help people get loan modifications and avoid foreclosure. Let me talk a little bit about mortgage scams and what is the most important thing you can do to sort of identify and avoid these scams. Whatever kind of mortgage you have, whether it's federally backed or not, you should know that scammers are following the headlines. So you're likely to hear from them. That might be an email, that might be a robocall, or a text message. These scammers will promise that they can change your loan, reduce your monthly payment, or take other steps to save your home. Unfortunately, many of these companies are not very honest, and they might outright lie to you to sell their services. Or they make promises just that they can't deliver on. Now, one of the best ways to spot a mortgage scam is to remember this. Never pay up front for help. It is illegal for a mortgage company or a company giving you this kind of assistance to charge you an upfront fee before they deliver the results that you want and that you were promised. So if they ask for payment or if they receive the payment from you before getting results, that's a red flag. Now, if you're worried about making car payments or the next car payment, here are a few things you can do. First, again, try to negotiate with your lender as soon as possible. Don't wait. Some banks, credit unions, and auto financing companies are letting people delay payments or renegotiate their payment schedules. Important thing to remember here is if your lender agrees to any changes, make sure you have them in writing. Okay. Number two, find out what rights you have in your state. Different states have different rules about how cars can be repossessed and what happens afterwards. If lenders break those rules, they might lose or other rights that they have against you, or sometimes they may be even liable to pay damages to you if they cost damages when they're repossessing the vehicle. Next is see if you can refinance your loan. If a lower interest rate or a longer loan term could make your car payments more doable, then perhaps refinancing is the way to go for you. Lastly, here on this slide, and equally important, don't do nothing. Okay, this is very important. If you miss payments, your lender could repossess your car, sometimes without warning. You also could be charged a lot more in fees, and it'll ruin your credit. Now, given the tough financial impact this pandemic is having on so many, folks might be getting behind on other kinds of payments too. And unfortunately, that might mean debt collectors will start calling. If you get calls, you might want to talk to the debt collector at least once, even if you don't think you owe the debt, or if you think you can't repay it right away. And here's why. Because that way you can confirm whether it's really your debt. If it is your debt, the collector can give you more information about it. You also may be able to work out a payment plan with the collector or an agreement to reduce the amount of the debt. Debt collectors are subject and have rules they have to follow. If they don't, please report them to us. Report it to the BBB, report it to the FTC, or the Ohio Attorney General's office. But here are some of those rules that apply to debt collectors. They cannot call you before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. They can't use profanity, threaten violence, or harass you when they're trying to collect on the debt. They can't lie or pretend to be someone they're not, like a government official. They can't threaten you with arrest or deportation. They can't tell anyone about your debt except your spouse or lawyer, if you have one. And they can't call you at work if they know your employer does not allow those kinds of calls. Here are a few more things to know about debts and debt collection these days. If you are overdue in repaying a federal student loan, or if you have a child or family member is overdue on that loan, it is important to know that the Department of Education has told its private debt collectors to stop calling, stop sending letters, or stop sending billing statements to people in default. This is in place until September 30th of this year. There is also an automatic forbearance for student loan borrowers through that same date. So there's nothing for a student borrower to do. It's been automatically postponed, those payments. However, if the student wants to make the payments, they can call their loan servicer and continue to make those payments. Also, the Department of Education has temporarily set interest rates at 0% on these student loans. Some states are putting limits on what kind of debts debt collectors can collect on. If you're not sure who regulates the debt collectors for your specific debt, you can start by contacting the Ohio Attorney General's office. That phone number is 800-282-0515. If debt collector calls are beginning to be too much for you, you have the right and you can get them to stop. But it is important for you to understand at the same time that The calls might stop, but the debt itself, it's still there. Now, here's what you need to do if you want to stop debt collectors from contacting you. One, you send the collector a letter telling them to stop calling you or writing to you about the debt. You want to send your letter via certified mail with a return receipt. This gives you a record that the collector got your letter. If you want to avoid a trip to the post office because of the pandemic and prefer to just drop it in the mail, you want to make sure that you're keeping a copy of that letter for your records. Once the collector gets your letter, the collector can only contact you in two specific instances. One, to confirm that you want them to stop contacting you. Okay, once they've confirmed that, they then need to stop contacting you, calling you, emailing, or sending you letters about the debt. That's number one. The second thing they can contact you about is to tell you that they, the collector or the creditor, the person or the company you owe the money to, is planning to take a specific action against you, like filing a lawsuit against you because of the unpaid debt. So again, the important thing to remember here is stopping a debt collector from contacting you does not cancel the debt. It will not decrease the debt either. You might still be sued or have the debt reported to a credit bureau, which will affect your credit history and your credit score. One way we can all help each other is by sharing good, trustworthy resources when we find them. And so that's why I think this webinar today is so important and useful for me to be able to share this information. And I hope that you'll pick this information up and share it with your family and your community. And here are some of the resources. You can keep up to date with the latest scams by signing up for FTC Consumer Alerts. You can visit that website, ftc.gov/subscribe. When you see or hear something that you think might be a scam, please report it to us. Even if you're not sure, even if you just have a suspicion, we want to hear about it. You can file a complaint by going to ftc.gov/complaint. You can also file a complaint with the BBB, and Sue will share that information with you in a little bit. Finally, here are 3 additional resources for you to share. To know the latest about the pandemic, go to coronavirus.gov. That'll take you straight to the CDC. To learn more about scams and how to avoid them, please visit ftc.gov/coronavirus and websites that Sue will be sharing with you, BBB websites as well. And finally, to find out what else is going on across the federal government, along with lots of resources from other agencies, you can visit usa.gov/coronavirus. Now, I'll turn it over to Sue, who will talk about some of the scams and schemes that the BBB has been seeing and additional resources for consumers. But I want to stop here and see if there are any questions, Pam.
I just have one question, Phil, and it is, how is a consumer affected, how is a cosigner affected by a person's loans?
That's a good question. So the basic thing to understand about a cosigner is, if you are a cosigner, you are agreeing to be liable for that loan or that debt in the occasion in the occasion that the actual borrower defaults. Okay, so you are on the hook if, for example, your child is not able to pay his or her student loan and you're a cosigner to that loan. You are the next in line to be held liable for that loan. Again, during these times, there are different kinds of relief associated with student loans. So, you know, you might not be getting those collection calls about the student debt right now, but basically, if you are the cosigner, you are agreeing to cover that loan in case the borrower is not able to pay it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that information. And just a reminder, if you do have a question, please feel free to type that in the question box. We will be able to have another chance to answer those at the end. I'm going to pass this over to Sue McConnell, the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau serving Greater Cleveland. She's going to talk about the BBB today as well as employment scams. Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Pam, and thank you everybody who's joined us today. As you can well imagine, many scams have surfaced in light of what we are experiencing with COVID-19. But today I'm going to focus on employment scams. As you can imagine, the scammers, as Phil said, they read the headlines. The scammers know exactly what the situation is with all of us right now in the United States. And because so many people are currently unemployed, have reduced hours or reduced wages, or possibly even going through waves of being furloughed, employment scams are something that the Better Business Bureau is hearing a lot about. We have a website called Scam Tracker, and I'll show that to you here in a few minutes. But Scam Tracker is a place where people go to report scams that have solicited them or come to their attention somehow. And these scams, when they're reported, the person submitting the report can classify what type of scam it is. And there are various types of scams. An employment scam is just one of the choices. When somebody submits a scam report, we ask for various information. Of course, we ask for the details of the scam, and then we'll ask them some information about their age range. Did they lose money to the scam? If so, how much? All the details they have, the name of the company promoting the scam, the company's website, its phone numbers, any details like that. And these scam reports then go on to Scam Tracker's site. And when we go to that site, you'll see that it is a map of North America with little flag pinpoints all over that signify the location of the consumer who reported the scam. Every year, all this data that we get from Scam Tracker is analyzed by our BBB Institute for Marketplace Trust, and they compile what's called the Scam Tracker Risk Report. When they're analyzing the data about these scam reports, they look at many things, but in order to rate the risk factor of a scam, the Institute looks at the exposure, meaning how prevalent was this scam reported by people submitting to Scam Tracker, the susceptibility that people had to the scam, which we determined based on the percentage of scam reports we received that indicated that the person experienced a dollar loss, and then we look at how much that dollar loss is. So as you can see from this graphic, employment scams topped the list as the most riskiest scam in 2018 and again in 2019. And it was a risk that really tracked across a broad age range from 18 to 54, and it was equally as risky for both men and women. And I have no doubt with what's happened in 2020 due to the how this coronavirus has impacted our ability to work and our work experience, that employment scams are again going to be a very big factor in what we see in our risk report when we compile it for 2020. So how do these employment scams work? Well, they have a lot of commonality depending on, regardless of the type of scam. And you may find these online. You may stumble across them through something you find online. They may reach out to you and solicit you. But it's generally going to be a very tempting job offer that has desirable wages and gives you the opportunity to work from home, work remotely from any place, and to basically make your own schedule. You can have very flexible hours. You'll typically have to do something to be become a participant in this job scam. Maybe the scammer will ask you to provide personal and or sensitive information. Perhaps they'll have you fill out some kind of an application form or provide your bank account information so they can deposit your wages right into your bank account. And one of the things you'll hear as a constant theme in the employment scams I'm going to talk about is that you will have to do something. You know, unlike a real job where you get interviewed and you get hired and you get paid, job scams typically will want you to do something, to purchase something. And very often the scammer will send you a check to cover any expenses. And as you'll hear me say often in the 4 scams I'm going to be talking about here, that check is a counterfeit check, not something that is a real check. And you are duped very easily. These offers can sound very legitimate. They can make themselves look very legitimate, and they're very tempting. And you can very easily become a victim of a job scam. The first scam I'm going to talk about here is one that's really popular that we see a lot of, is having your car wrapped. So these offers, you may see ads for these types of jobs, or they may again text you or solicit you claiming that you can get paid to drive. Wonderful. You can get paid to drive. How easy is that? And the key is that you are agreeing to have your vehicle wrapped with advertising about a particular brand or a particular product. If you agree to participate in this, you're going to get a check in the mail. Now, this particular individual from Lakewood who submitted this scam report at our Scam Tracker site received a FedEx that had a check for $4,750 in it. And he was told to keep $500 for himself, and then the rest of the money was to go to a company that would actually install the wrap on his vehicle. And that is where the scam, you know, comes in, because first of all, this check that you deposit, it may clear your bank, and we often think that when a check clears, that means it's a good check, but it just means that the bank has made the funds available to you from that check, and the banks are required to make it available to you within a short period of time. But it takes the bank a much longer period of time to discover that that check you deposited is actually counterfeit. And the bank will then come back to you and tell you that check was bogus and you need to return the funds that you withdrew from that amount that you deposited. So in the case of the car wrapping, you deposit this check, you send money, typically wire money, off to some third party, or now that gift cards have become a popular payment vehicle for scammers, there may be some attempt to get you to pay in some other fashion, but the bulk of the money that you got from that phony check that you deposited is going off to a party to wrap your vehicle. And that's really where it will end for you, because the party that's supposed to wrap your vehicle will quickly stop communicating with you, and the bank will then notify you the check was counterfeit. So there never was a legitimate offer to wrap your vehicle. And if you did withdraw all the funds that you deposited with that check, you're now going to have to return all those funds back to the bank. Reshipping scams are also very popular. And in years past, criminals would use stolen credit card information. They'd go online to big retailers and buy pricey goods, which they then would have shipped to them or some public place where they could pick it up, and then turn around and resell these items at, of course, 100% profit because it cost them nothing. But long ago, a lot of the major online retailers stopped shipping to countries most frequently associated with credit card fraud. And this created a need for these criminals to find some other way to get these goods shipped to them. So they have created reshipping scams, where they use a mule or a drop, which is the person who thinks they're being hired to be a reshipper, to accept packages either at their home or at some public place where packages can be dropped off, like a Walgreens, for example, and then relabel and reship these packages off to the criminals that are sitting in a foreign country. And again, this seems like a very easy job. I just sit at home and accept packages, or I go pick up packages. All I have to do is reship them, and the scammers claim you can make a lot of money doing this, and claims of paying you up to $2,500 a month are not uncommon. So it sounds like a real great opportunity. The shipping labels that they will provide to you to reship these packages are also part of this big scam enterprise, in that these shipping labels are purchased using stolen credit cards and then resold on the black market at a great discount. For example, U.S. Postal Service Express Mail International label for a package weighing 20 pounds or less to ship to Russia would cost $75, but on the black market, these scammers can buy these mailing labels for $14. So if you participate in this type of thing, you are actually assisting these criminals in their enterprise. But you don't realize this. You think this is a legitimate opportunity. It sounds good. And where it falls apart for you, they're not sending you a counterfeit check to put in the bank. They're promising you you're going to get your payment at the end of each month. So when it gets close to the end of that first month, they cut off communication with you, and you find that you're not getting paid. You don't even have a way to contact them. As this individual from Warrensville Heights says, my login was discontinued and I did not get paid. And this particular person had shipped several packages with information from everything from laptops to clothing, and at the end of it all, realized finally that they had been duped. And some of another thing I was listening to recently was that the coronavirus put a little damper on this reshipping scam for some of these criminals, because they were not able to go to the public places that the scammers normally went to pick up these packages that were reshipped, because those places had been closed due to COVID-19. So they morphed this a little bit to ask people who they were hiring as mules to resell these items, accept the packages, but then turn around and resell them. So you may see offers from reshipping type scams where they are asking you to basically resell these items. But again, not a legitimate job offer, although it certainly sounds very promising when you first hear about it or get solicited. The third one we'll discuss is mystery shopping scams. Now, these, again, have been around for a long time. And this is a scam that offers to pay you to shop companies, to go into the place of business or do a transaction with the company and then report back to somebody about your experience. There are legitimate businesses that offer mystery shopping to other companies, and it's a perfectly valid service that has been offered for many, many, many years. But what the scammers do is they solicit you to become a mystery shopper, and they tell you that you are going to take a check that they've sent to you. Now, in years past, you would get a letter in the mail, and it said, you've been selected to be a mystery shopper, and a check would be enclosed with instructions to deposit the check and then take out most of that money and do something with it. At one time, these mystery shopping scams would want you to take the money out and then go to like a Western Union office, or let's say a Walmart that has a Western Union service, and wire money to people to shop, supposedly, how your wire transfer transaction was handled. Of course, at the receiving end of those funds that you wired was the scammer who is getting this money. Now they tend to steer more towards buying gift cards, as in this example that this Lyndhurst consumer reported to us. They got a check for $1,500 and were supposed to use most of it to buy iTunes gift cards and then get back to their so-called employer with the numbers on the gift cards. And once the scammers have these numbers from the gift cards, they can either resell the cards, drain the value off these cards. But as with the counterfeit check we talked about in the previous scams, this check that you're going to get to become a mystery shopper is to buy gift cards or whatever they tell you to do with it is indeed counterfeit, and your bank will ultimately contact you and tell you you have to return those funds. I just saw an item about a woman in Memphis about a month ago, and I thought the scammers were being very clever because they're capitalizing again on the coronavirus. She was solicited to be a secret shopper at Walmart by a company that called itself PMA Auditoria, who claimed to be understaffed due to government-imposed lockdowns due to the coronavirus. And they sent her a check. She was told she could deposit the check, but she could verify it at a website called verifycheck@pma.org. Well, of course, the website was phony and had been registered from Nigeria, but it would make it appear that this check was valid. She was then told to deposit the check and then withdraw the funds, go to 2 different Walmart stores. And part of what she was supposed to do as part of her mystery shopping job was to assess how each of the Walmart stores were handling the virus. Were employees wearing face masks? And she was also asked to check to see how many essential items were out of stock. Then she was told to take the funds she withdrew from this check she received and purchase 2 $400 Walmart gift cards at each Walmart store, and then send pictures of the cards back to her so-called employer. The rest of the money, $380 left from the check she received, was to be her wages. Well, thankfully, she got a little suspicious. She didn't fall for it. She reached out to her local BBB, who did tell her it was a scam, and she did not become a victim of this mystery shopping scam. Overseas employers, this really takes is a real general term for a lot of different types of job offers. We see a lot of college students that get hit up by overseas employers after the student has posted their resume at Indeed.com or a lot of different job sites, and scammers troll those sites, and then they now have contact information and they reach out offering you a job working for them. They will claim to be headquartered in another country, and they need somebody in the United States to do some function that for some reason is easier and cheaper for them to do by hiring someone in the United States than by having their own employees in their own country do this. They will often create websites that make themselves look like legitimate businesses. And it's very easy for a criminal to create a website for a non-existent company. They will lift photos of impressive office buildings. They will lift pictures of executives at other companies from their websites and pull together all this information to make you believe that the company that they are representing is a very valid, impressive, large corporation. They will then offer you various opportunities to work for them, and they may have an application that you fill out with the potential to take that information you provide to attempt to steal your identity. They may ask for access to your bank account so they can drop your income directly into your account. But it is, again, a scam. It's not going to be a situation where they're hiring you, you do a job and they pay you. They're going to want you to do something. They're going to want you to buy gift cards for something, or they transfer packages or payments or something. But many of the job scams that we see do originate from foreign sites. If you are researching a job offer and the company has a website, there is a place you can go to look for the registration information of that website. And that's one of the tools we use is whois.com, whois.com. At whois.com, you can enter the web address of the company, the URL of the company, and whois.com will show you when that site was created, and even more importantly, what the country of origination was for the registration. And you'll be able to see if this business was registered from a foreign country, if it was just recently registered, and that could all be red flags that you are about to be victimized by a scam. So what are some of the red flags you can look for? Well, a lot of things we've talked about. Very tempting wages. The job is very easy to perform. You can make your own hours. You can work from home. You're not going to go through a typical interview process where you then are hired based on your qualifications in the interview. The business may use the name of a popular brand like the car wrapping scams, or it may use the name of an actual large corporation like in some of the overseas employers. Sometimes they'll want you to pay for things like training or certification or coaching, but many of them are going to send you a check and ask you to do something with that check. So next, I want to talk a little bit about Scam Tracker, and I'm just going to bounce off this graphic a second and go on to the Scam Tracker website. So this is what you'll see when you go to Scam Tracker. Now, typically it's a very large map of North America. This particular view is showing you more of a localized view of the Cleveland area. Once you're on this Scam Tracker site, you can drill down into specific areas of the country and look at the types of scams that are being reported in those areas. And if you can search by a keyword, you can search by category. We recently added COVID-19 as a category. You can search in any date range, and I'm going to just put employment scams in here. This site was created in 2015, and we've had hundreds of thousands of scams reported to it. Here's one that was an employment scam that just was reported today, and you can view these details. But this particular person is reporting that they applied for a job as a receptionist. They were sent 2 checks to deposit. The checks were counterfeit, and I ended up losing thousands of dollars. So this particular victim lost $4,000. So you can see that these employment scams are really very prevalent. People do lose substantial amounts of money to them. And if you have become aware of a scam, please go to our Scam Tracker site and report it. Many people come to this site to see if what they have been solicited by is actually a scam. And it's very helpful to be a hero for us and report scams that come to your attention. These are ways that you can contact Better Business Bureau by email. We do still answer the phone with live human beings during normal working hours. Our website is bbb.org. We also have live chat available at bbb.org, and that's a very popular feature. You can contact us, Monday through Friday. I think right now we're on live chat from maybe 9 to 3, something like that. And you can actually converse and chat with one of our staff and at any kind of problem. If you have a question, if you have a complaint, if you want to check out a company or check out a charity. And also, if you have become aware of any scams, please report them not only to our bbb.org/scam tracker, but also to agencies like the FTC. Phil mentioned their ftc.gov/complaint. The more places you can share this information, the better you will be able to help law enforcement track things down, help agencies like ours to warn the public and stop other people from becoming victims. So I just thank everybody who attended today, and thank you for your questions. And Phil, thank you so much. This is the FTC has been a great partner for BBB and has just a wealth of information for not only consumers but businesses. And this is the contact information. Please do reach out. Both of our agencies have a lot of resources for you concerning coronavirus, specifically on our websites, various resources for consumers as well as businesses, and alerts about various scams. And thank you, Pam, for moderating today.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for coming on. I hope you have a wonderful day.